us our very own Thi Valdez, and the topic is safety in your self-directed IRAs. But before we get to our amazing topic and speaker today, we have a great video to play for you. You may recognize some names and voices and faces.
My goodness, another crazy day at the stock market. With all this uncertainty, how on earth am I going to feel comfortable retiring? There has to be a better way to invest my money safely.
There is.
Who said that?
The disembodied voice in your kitchen.
Oh my! Wait, what other way is there?
It's something called a self-directed IRA.
A self-directed IRA?
Yes.
Well, what does it do then, huh?
This IRA allows you to use your 401k and IRA money to invest in alternative assets, such as real estate, notes, and private entities. The stock market can be volatile, and having alternative investments that you are knowledgeable about in your IRA provides a lot less fluctuation and helps diversify your portfolio, so you don't have all your eggs in one basket.
Well, that sounds like a swell idea. How do I get one of those?
All you have to do to get started is open up an IRA with Quest Trust Company. You can call one of our certified IRA specialists at 855-FUN-IRAs and submit an application online now.
How grand! I think I'll call them right now.
But wait, there's more.
There's more.
Don't get burned by the stock market this summer. When you open an account with Quest Trust Company, we'll send you a free toaster. That's right. When you open an account right now with Quest Trust Company, you will get a free toaster. Use promo code TOASTER, right, and call 855-FUN-IRAs and talk to a certified IRA specialist right now.
All right, everybody, that is our special promotion for the month of June. You only have 2 more days to get your toaster. Get them while they're hot. There was our very own Nathan Long and our special other Nicole from marketing, Nicole Faniff. All right, so get your toasters. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how to get one. Before we get to our amazing topic and woman of the hour, I'm going to share a few slides about who Quest is and what we do. All right, here we go. Switch this up. All right, so who is Quest? What do we do? So Quest Trust is a custodial company for self-directed IRAs. It was started by Nathan and Quincy Long, 2 brothers. So it was started by investors for investors. They actually built the company around what they would need as investors. We are the largest self-directed IRA custodian in Texas. We have 20,000 active investors all across the country. So no matter where you're watching us from now, we can help you. $2 billion under assets under administration, and $350 million in undirected cash. This is a huge opportunity for lenders and borrowers to come together and get some investments, create some promissory notes. A lot of opportunities there. Of course, we have to go through our disclaimer. This webinar, like all of our webinars, is for educational purposes only. Quest Trust Company does not provide any legal, tax, structuring, or investment advice. We absolutely encourage you to do all of your due diligence on your professionals that you're working with and the investment. So make sure you're contacting your lawyers and CPAs before making your investment. All right, so what is a self-directed IRA and why do you need one? So self-directed is honestly just a marketing term, and it means you get to direct us for the investments in the account. Just a marketing term. An IRA with Quest is just like an IRA anywhere else, except that we have a wonderful platform that opens it up to all these other alternative investments like Nathan was talking about in the video. So of course, one of the benefits is the diversification. Instead of just being able to invest in the market, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, now you have this whole open door of private entities, real estate, promissory notes, oil and gas, kind of the list is endless there. Of course, tax savings. We have a traditional and a Roth personal accounts. We have, of course, one is pre-tax. The Roth is after tax. With some certain qualifications, you can even get tax and penalty-free distributions at retirement. So make sure you're contacting your IRA specialist to see how that can work for you. And of course, invest in what you know best. If you have a lot of knowledge about real estate, oil and gas, lending, etc., use your knowledge to work for you for retirement. All right, so we have 7 accounts at Quest. We have 2 personal accounts, our employer plans, and our specialty plans. I would love to tell you more about all of them right now, but I just don't have the time. So make sure you get in touch with your IRA specialist, even if you already have an account with us, to make sure you're taking advantage of everything that you can for your families. So your investment choices. These are our 3 main asset classes, but honestly, this is a short list. There's definitely other things that you can invest in. Oil and gas isn't on here. So make sure you're getting in touch with your IRA specialist to see which one might work for you. All right, our client portal, we revamped this in April and we're so proud of it. You can now do all of your investments online, pay your expenses, upload secure documents, upload your fair market valuation, get your secure messages, annual statements, etc. So make sure you're really utilizing that client portal. All right, we offer endless free education like you're getting right now. So every Tuesday and Thursday at noon Central, we have our weekly webinar. Of course, on Saturday, Self-Directed Saturday at noon Central, we always have that as well. Our YouTube channel is full of amazing knowledge. This webinar now that you're watching is streaming live and will be there under the video section for you to watch later. And a little more about our YouTube channel. We are 25 subscribers away from hitting 2,000. So everybody watching right now, please, please, please. Haley is actually moderating for us today. I know Haley's going to put the link in the chat box for us now. Go to our YouTube page and hit subscribe. Please help us get to 2,000 subscribers. We're really proud of our channel. It has tons of webinars, tons of educational information about processing the investments. It's really endless. So go ahead and check it out. Our education center, also on our main website, is full of articles and videos as well. And then our virtual networking happy hour is something very unique to Quest and something that we're really proud of. Haley Gant actually started this in, of course, coronavirus times, but it's actually grown to quite the large event, very popular, and now we can reach people all across the country. So join us on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of every month at 6:30 Central for this fun event. Come have a glass of wine or a beer with us. All right, so some things coming up. July, we are having a summer intensive. We're really excited about this. This is going to be held over 3 Fridays in the morning. The $25 does cover all 3 days. And this is going to be really a high level education series going into each one of our asset classes. So make sure you go to our website and check out this event. All right, pays to have friends at Quest. If you refer people to Quest and they open an account, you will get a $25 credit to your account, and they will get $25 off their account opening fee. So make sure to check out that, refer.questtrust.com. All right, that slide's not supposed to be in there. I apologize. All right, don't get burned by the stock market this summer. Get your toasters now. Get them while they're hot. No pun intended. Only 2 more days to get yours. That's an actual picture of the toaster. We've had a lot of fun with this month. Make sure to get yours. Call your IRA specialist. How do you get in touch with us? We're very easy to get in touch with us. The QR code actually does work. You can go to our chat box on our website. It is actual IRA specialists and transaction specialists helping you out, not any robots. Of course, I love our phone number, 855-FUN-IRAs. We really do make this fun for you. Or email us directly, IRAspecialist@questtrust.com, or email me directly, nicole.baco@questtrust.com. All right, that is quite enough of me, and I'm sure we are all waiting to hear from the lady and the topic of the hour, Ms. Thi Valdez, and safety in self-directing. So Thi, please take it away for us.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to take a moment here to share my screen. Let's see. All right. Are we all looking at the proper screen? Should have.
Can you switch it to
Yes.
yeah.
Cool.
There you go.
All right. Hello, everyone. Today's topic is self-directing safely. And the main thing that I am going to discuss and try to hone in on today is do the due diligence. Okay, so it all comes down to due diligence and how you can conduct due diligence throughout the life of your investment to ensure that it is performing properly for you. Nicole already went through our disclaimer, but I would just like to put it up here again. We do not provide any tax, legal, investment advice, any structure and advice. We don't endorse any products. And in terms of legal advice, that is a little hard for me because I am an attorney, but acting in this role, serving as a custodian for Quest Trust Company, we are here to offer you this education so that you can use it for your next investment, okay? All the information being presented to you today is for educational purposes. As Nicole mentioned, work with your professional advisors, whether they be an attorney, an accountant, a financial advisor, a financial planner, to make the best decisions for your self-directed IRA, okay? A little bit about me. I am a licensed attorney, and Nathan will say quite often that you shouldn't hold that against me. But I have been working in this role as a compliance officer with Quest Trust Company. It'll be 4 years this November. I am also a certified IRA service professional. And so just getting into today's presentation. So Nicole went over a little bit about what we do and who we are at Quest, but I, have a different spin on it. So a self-directed IRA, Nicole mentioned that it's no different than an IRA that you would hold at, a normal brokerage company like Charles Schwab or Fidelity, something of that nature. It is a marketing term, and it is based on what it is that you can invest in the actual account. Okay, but in legal terms, what is an IRA? An IRA is a trust held for your benefit at retirement. So in order for you to benefit from it at retirement, you have to hold it in a separate bucket legally. Okay, you can't commingle your personal funds with your IRA funds. There are rules in terms of maintaining the account to ensure that you can benefit from it at retirement. That's how the accounts were designed, and that's how they're structured. And we have to comply with all the strict rules in order to benefit from it later, okay? How do you use it? So Nicole touched on this as well. It allows you to diversify your portfolio. And if you are an investor in your own right, it allows you to invest in what you know best. I think the most beneficial part of self-directed IRA is that it's a powerful wealth growing tool, okay? Because it can grow tax deferred, and in a lot of cases, if you meet the criteria, it can grow tax-free and penalty-free at the time that you retirement and take distributions from the account, okay? With self-directed accounts, you are able to invest in alternative investments, which I've seen historically have higher yields than what you would find on the stock market, depending on the deals that you find. Okay, so the opportunity to grow your IRA is significant when it comes to self-direction. And so we've been talking about all the positive things about self-directed accounts, but what is the catch? So how do you properly use it? I keep saying that there are strict, rules and regulations associated with a self-directed IRA. I believe the main thing that could hurt your retirement is if you conduct a prohibited transaction. That is just one of many rules you should be cognizant of if you are using a self-directed IRA account, because the penalties associated with conducting or engaging in a prohibited transaction is that your entire IRA ceased to exist. Okay, so whatever you own in it today will be distributed to you, and that could be a taxable event, depending on how old you are, the type of account, and things like that. Okay, so understanding the rules will help you benefit at retirement. And most importantly, the thing I want to say, what clients should understand when they have a self-directed account is that you, the client, the account holder, is the fiduciary to the account. Okay, it's not me. It's not Nicole. It's no one here at Quest. It's you. You have the power to select the investments in your account. But with that same breath, you also, as a fiduciary, have to do what is in the best interest of your IRA. Okay. And that kind of leads us into the main topic of discussion today, which is due diligence, right? When it comes to due diligence, it is the process of investigation or taking reasonable steps before engaging in an agreement, okay? But serving in this role and having worked for Quest, I've been able to see that due diligence does not just occur at the very beginning when you are considering investment, but it happens throughout the life of your investment, and it also happens when your investment comes to an end. Okay, so those are the main things that I'm going to discuss today. With your retirement account, one thing you have to keep in mind is that building a retirement account to a substantial size should take quite some time because you're limited to how much you can contribute on an annual basis. So if you're acting in the best interest of your IRA and you're conducting the due diligence that you should be conducting, you're maintaining, the balance of the account. You're making sure that the assets in your account is protected. So again, you can benefit from that at the time of retirement. Okay. And so first, before you purchase an investment, I think this is the point in the entire process where due diligence will take a lot of work. Okay. You're going to have to put in a lot of work after you think you found an investment. Here's just a list of questions and things that you should consider before funding that actual deal. Okay. First things first, do you know who you're doing business with? I think this is kind of a really big question because if you know the person that you're doing business with, they should be able to provide you with historical data. If the company or if they've been in business for a long time, if they've been in this area for a long time, for instance, if they are developers, they've been buying and flipping houses for a long time, they should be able to provide you with some type of portfolio that shows you where they've been, how they've used funds that they've raised, and what the results and what the potential return can be if you invest your money into their business, right? Other things they should be forthcoming with are financials and references. If they are reputable, investment sponsors, they should have a list of reference that you can potentially just call and ask questions about how, older investors or past investors have benefited from working with this individual. And then lastly, you have to ensure that if they specify that they are registered, for instance, they are a financial advisor or a wealth planner, most of these classifications require that individual to be registered on some public platform, right? So you can log on, search to see if their license is still accurate, is still valid, who they're hanging their license with, and if that's a reputable firm. These are all things that you can do to ensure that you know who you're doing business with, okay? One thing that I didn't put on this slide that I think is really important is if you are investing and it relates to real estate. For instance, you are lending money to a developer and that they are providing in return a lien on a property. So if they default, you can foreclose on that, right? In that situation, you want to do the legwork or have someone you trust do the legwork for you, okay? What that means is, have you gone out to the property? Do you see that it exists? Something actually came across my desk today, same type of situation, property secured by real estate. And, the investment sponsor promised that there are going to be buildings, houses built on the lot. And to date, they have not built a single house on the lot. And so this is just a part of due diligence. Go out to the property that they're pledging as collateral, check to see if a building exists, look it up online, ask whether there's a title search that they can provide. Oftentimes, if you're dealing with real estate, the best course of action is to close through a title company. They will be able to tell you whether there are any other liens on the property, where you sit in terms of your security level, right? So like, are you first in line? Are you second in line? Are you third in line? The investment sponsor can promise things to you, but they not actually be true. So you have to take additional steps to ensure, that what they're promising to you exists. The documentation, and I might be saying this because I'm an attorney, but the documentation is very, very important. Not only does do we at Quest look at the documentation to fund, but generally, if it becomes a legal matter and you have to take it to court, there will be no stronger evidence than the documentation of the investment, right? The documentation should tell you the terms of the investment. If it's a note, what is the interest rate? Is the client or is the borrower to pay you, a fixed amount every month when those payments are due? What happens if they don't pay? One of the things that I notice is in the terms of the agreement, there may be a penalty fee for paying payments late. Usually, I want to say it's like 5% or something like that, 5-10%. And clients are not necessarily collecting on that late fee. But again, this is an opportunity. If you understand the terms of your agreement of the investment, you have the opportunity to collect these additional fees specified in the document. Okay. Do you have the proper documents for us to fund? One example, again, I'm going to constantly use a note secured by a piece of real estate as the example for this presentation. So for instance, we have had clients who've specified that they're investing in a note secured by real estate. In Texas, what that looks like is it's a note, and then subsequently there's a deed of trust. The deed of trust is a lien. It allows you to bypass the court, so you don't have to go to the court, file a lawsuit, show that the borrower is in default, and then the court grants you permission to foreclose. The deed of trust allows you to bypass that process in terms of filing the lawsuit, going to the court, right? So for us, when we fund an investment here at Quest, we look for, and if you tell us it's a note secured by real estate, we look for the note and we look for the deed of trust. We have had clients who refuses to provide a deed of trust or, say that one is not necessary. In those instances, if we don't have the security document, what we're forced to do is put that in the system as an unsecured note. Okay. And so it's classified a little bit differently. And then the recourse, if you had to go and force collection or something like that, will be a little bit different as well. Okay. So working with an attorney to make sure that your document properly protects your interest in the investment or your IRA's interest in the investment, and then understanding what recourse is available if the investment goes bad, all of that should be documented in your investment packet, right? And if you're working with an attorney, they can help you through all the legal jargon. They can help you understand some of the nuanced clauses that are in, form documents. There might be clauses in there that you don't necessarily agree with or that you don't think is necessary. And then there may be clauses that are extremely important to you. If you are working with an attorney to draft those documents, they can outline that for you and help you understand what's considered a breach of that agreement, right? So the documentation, I would say, is extremely important. And I definitely think it's worth it to consult an attorney before you're investing your hard-earned retirement money. And then IRA-related restrictions. We have a ton of classes over IRA-related restrictions. The main one, of course, is prohibited transactions, right? Do you understand what a prohibited transaction consists of? And does the investment that you're considering constitute a prohibited transaction, or could it, directly or indirectly constitute that, right? Also, if you're investing in something that incurs UBIT, do you know how to handle that? Do you have a CPA that would be able to file the taxes, the tax forms for you in order to declare that UBIT and pay those taxes associated with the investment? Okay. Thoroughly understanding the IRA restrictions is so important in terms of determining what investment is right for your IRA. And then lastly, our role here at Quest. We are the custodian of your account, right? So however you send in the money, whether it be a contribution or you're transferring or rolling in from an existing account, we take that money. And then once you've given us written instructions to purchase an investment or to pay a fee, we go ahead and do that, okay? We do not automatically do anything because we need the written instructions from our clients, okay? That's the whole purpose of a self-directed account. So when we're looking at investment documents, all that we are looking for is that the packet is complete. So if it's a note secured by real estate, we have the note, we have the deed of trust, and we have our direction of investment form, which is the written instructions for us to fund the investment. We also look over the documentation to make sure that it's not blatantly prohibited. What would be blatantly prohibited is if I use my IRA to lend money to my husband's business. That would be blatantly prohibited. And those are the things that Quest would look for because, they'll see my husband's name on the document and they'll probably ask additional questions that would, unearth that this is a prohibited transaction, right? And then also we make sure that you have adequate funds in your account to fund the transaction. And then we make sure that the investment is not administratively infeasible. By administratively infeasible, that can mean an array of things, but mainly the investment itself is not something our board has deemed, to be restricted, that we're not allowed to invest in, or if, the particular investment, we wouldn't be able to ascertain like an annual fair market valuation, that would then make it administratively infeasible for us to hold. So things like that. But what Quest does not do is we do not look at the terms of the investment to determine whether it's a good or bad investment, okay? So, we treat a note that has a 5% interest rate the same as a note that has a 12% interest rate, okay? Of course, in my mind, I think the 12% is better, but if the 5% is what the client is able to negotiate, it doesn't necessarily make it an investment that we cannot fund. Okay, so we definitely cannot provide any opinions as it relates to the investment documents. If the vesting is off or if it's incomplete, for instance, it's a note without a maturity date, those are things that we'll point out and ask the client to remediate before we fund the actual investment. Okay, all right. So now that we funded the investment, you have to continue doing due diligence for your investment. It doesn't stop at the beginning. And then due diligence for the life of your investment can be very minimal. It can be very robust. It just depends on who you are as an investor, right? What type of care do you want to give to your account and to your retirement, okay? Things that you should consider. First and foremost, this is the easiest way to gauge whether your investment is performing, the payments. Are the payments coming in, if you understand the terms of the agreement, you'll know whether the payment should be coming in annually, monthly, quarterly, or is it like a balloon note where they're paying interest payments monthly and the principal value is paid at maturity, okay? Other things you want to consider about payments is, are they being applied to your account correctly, okay? For a balloon note, if it's interest only, generally we apply that as interest and the value of the note stays the same. If you have an amortized note, I like to just think of amortized notes as like a mortgage payment for your house or a car note, because what you're doing with an amortized note is you're paying down a portion of the interest and a portion of the principal, okay? So if your borrower is sending in money to Quest, it is important to specify how much goes to principal and then how much goes to interest. So this will help you kind of keep track of how much you have left on this note, because if you apply anything to principal, we will reduce the value of the note for you over time, okay? And annual FMVs. Annual FMVs, of course, is very huge for our company here. We've always collected it historically as a company, but since we became the Texas Department, we became regulated by the Texas Department of Banking and became a trust company, we are now required to collect supporting documentation for annual FMVs. Okay. And while some of our clients are, not sure why it is that the requirements have changed, this is just a good opportunity once a year for all clients to look at their account and see how their investment is performing. The annual FMV should help you meet that due diligence requirement that you should be conducting for your IRA. Okay. It should, you should be reaching out to the investment sponsor, for instance, if you're invested in a private entity, for them to tell you, how well the company did that year. If the company promised you quarterly or annual financials, satisfying the FMV requirement should be easy. And again, if they're promising these statements and they're not providing them to you, you have the opportunity once a year, when we send out those reminders, for you to follow up with your investment advisor to see where you're at, or where your investment is at and how your investment is doing. Okay, so make sure that if you're promised financials, that they're sending them to you. If they're not sending them to you, that is, potentially a red flag for you to look into, ask more questions. If you are invested with a company, just know that as an investor, you have certain rights. You have the rights, to understand the wealth of the company. You have the right to ask for financials. This should be outlined in like your subscription agreement or the company agreement, things of that nature. So if you sat down with an attorney, walk through all of those documents, you should understand what rights your IRA has as an investor and what information you can demand from these people. Okay. And so use annual FMVs not as a nagging task, but as an opportunity to check in on your investment at least once a year, just to see how well it's doing. Okay. Other maintenance. So other maintenance can come in the form of paying taxes for a property held in your IRA. Other maintenance could be custodial fees. What fee schedule are you on with Quest, and does that make the most financial sense for you and what you're invested in? And how are those fees being paid? We had a client recently who had an inherited IRA account. An inherited IRA account, of course, the rules are that, you inherit the amount of money or the assets at the time that the, grantor passes away. You're unable to make any contributions into the inherited account. So basically, the balance of the account is really important. You kind of want to maintain that until you have to take it out. And so in that situation, we had a client that unknowingly had her account set to debit. So what we were doing, we were taking asset, administration fees out of her account. So when she was ready to invest using her inherited account, she realized she started with less funds. And so this is something you want to be cognizant of. At Quest, we offer monthly statements for our clients, right? So you have the opportunity to review the transactions made in your account that month and point out any discrepancies to us within 60 days for us to correct that. Okay. This is definitely another way that you can conduct due diligence throughout the life of your investment, is reviewing your statements to make sure that your borrowers are paying on time, fees are being assessed properly, things of that nature. Okay. You can, and then of course, other maintenance can include things like, paying rehab expenses for a property that's held in your IRA. If you're using a third-party loan servicer, you'll have to pay those expenses through the IRA as well. And so those are all things involved in the maintenance of an asset after you've purchased it in your account. Okay. And then at the very end, 2 possibilities can happen for your investment at the end. You receive a payoff. It went the way it was supposed to. So you receive all the funds you were promised, and then some, plus the interest, right? It is deposited into your IRA account. We at Quest do not automatically assume that the payoff is the final payoff. So what we request is that the client submit what's known as a disposition of asset form. This form basically gives us permission to close out the asset. So if you are anticipating a payoff from an investment in your account, it may be a good idea to just submit the disposition of asset form in advance. So once we see the corresponding payoff, we'll go ahead and close that out for you. Otherwise, if it's in the reverse, we will contact you and ask you for this information. Making sure that you submit the disposition of asset form is very, very important. One, it helps your asset or your account, the value be at an appropriate balance, and it's not inflated by the payoff amount. Also, it helps with administrative fees. If you're on the asset-based fee plan, you're paying per asset in your account, right? So if you have an asset that has been paid off and should be closed, you definitely want to remove that and minimize any fees that you have to pay administratively, okay? And then, of course, in instances where the asset does not go well, it goes bad, or it goes into default, what due diligence do you have to conduct at this point, okay? If an investment goes bad or if an investment goes into default, you have to reference the initial investment documents and ask yourself or your attorney, should be your attorney, what recourse does your IRA have under these investment documents, okay? You have to, as a fiduciary of your own IRA account, you have to know all the recourse available to your IRA, and you have to take all the necessary actions to recover the money, used for this investment as a fiduciary of your own IRA, right? So this is you acting in the best interest of your IRA. And then, can you prove that you've taken all available action? In order for us to deem the investment bad and write it off of your account as a bad investment, we have to have supporting documentation that shows you as a fiduciary have taken all necessary actions to recover on this investment and that there is no additional recourse, okay? And then if that's the case, we go through what we call internally as our zero valuation process. In this process, we collect documentation, of course, to show that the fiduciary of the account has taken all necessary actions to recover on the investment, okay? And generally at this point, it becomes a legal matter, right? So if you have a note and the borrower has defaulted and you have this deed of trust, you'd like to move forward with foreclosure, you have to deem the asset in default, right? So you work with an attorney, they send the default notices to the borrower and then they go forward with foreclosure. Okay, you work with an attorney throughout that. But let's say you didn't hold a first lien deed of trust, you held a second lien, and the first lien forecloses. And whatever the first lien was able to recoup only covered, their loan and what they lent out to the borrower, right? So you, in a second lien position, you're now left with an unsecured loan. So what recourse do you have at that point if you cannot go forward with foreclosure? You have to go after the borrower directly. Did your documentation have a personal guarantee if you're lending to a company? If you had a personal guarantee, it allows you to go after the individual. If you didn't have a personal guarantee, it allows you to go after the company if the company has any additional assets for you to recoup from, right? So these are all things that you want to consider. If your investment does go bad and you are forced to work with an attorney to recover on your investment, please ensure and know that all representation should be for the IRA. So the attorney is representing the IRA at every stage, that they're not representing you individually, and that fees associated with the representation is coming from the IRA, okay? We have had clients who hired an attorney who represented them individually, and if the investment sponsor is savvy, which we have seen, they will say that, the individual does not have standing to sue, okay? It is the IRA that owns the investment, and therefore the IRA as an entity needs to move forward with any legal action. The attorney needs to represent the IRA itself and not the individual, okay? And And so working with an attorney throughout the entire process, although maybe somewhat expensive outright, but it will help you protect your investment. You definitely don't just want to go to an attorney once your asset is in default. What happens in that scenario is, the attorney may not be familiar with the investment documents drafted. They may not, be comfortable with the terms in which you've executed the agreement, right? So they may not be able to help you. But if you're working with an attorney from start to finish, and they understand the investment documents, they understand how the investment document protects your IRA, they will be in a better position to help you if ever your investment goes bad. And then again, for Quest, we can't just receive a call from a client that claims their investment is bad and automatically close it out. We have to document proof that the investment is bad, that it didn't constitute like a distribution, that the account holder acted in the best interest of their account, and we have all the proof to provide that. At that point, and only then, will we allow a client to zero value an asset, okay? So another thing to note with the zero value process is the zero value process allows you to take your asset down to $1. It tells you that the asset is worthless. You have the opportunity, once the asset is taken down to zero, to either leave it in your account or take a distribution of the asset, okay? If you take a distribution of the asset and you happen to recover money at some point in the distant future, maybe there was a class action lawsuit against the individual or an SEC investigation against the individual, and you receive a settlement, just know that you cannot put that back into your IRA, okay? Once you take a distribution of an asset that you deem is worthless and you recover on it at some point in the future, all of what you recover could be taxable to you personally, okay? So deeming an asset to be worthless or zero value is very, clients sometimes do it just to save from administrative fees, but I think you should take additional precaution before devaluing an investment, because it's definitely not easy to fix any tax consequences or anything like that associated with an investment, right? So you want to make sure that you're working with proper legal counsel and taking the proper necessary actions before, resulting to zero valuing, right? So just in summary, we've discussed that due diligence should be conducted at all phases of your investment, not just the beginning, okay? And due diligence throughout the life of your investment will look different based on your tolerance level as an investor, okay, for your IRA. And then doing, for instance, your annual FMV is an opportunity to conduct due diligence. We definitely shouldn't view that, for instance, as a nagging task or anything like that. It is very important for you to check in on your investment at least annually. I would like to say that I know sometimes it's really tough to admit that, you made a bad decision that has led, some of your hard-earned retirement money, to disappear. I understand that is sometimes really hard to deal with, but dealing with it head on, contacting our office, talking to us about what you should do now that you feel your asset is bad, is definitely the first step. Because if you ignore the situation, what will happen is you will incur, administrative fees that are unnecessary. And then if the fees become delinquent in your account because you haven't paid enough attention to it, we may result in distributing it at the last known value. And so that becomes a taxable consequence to you. And once you get the 1099 and the IRS is coming, knocking on your door for these taxes, usually that's when our clients contact us and say, hey, this investment is bad, and I need to devalue it. It becomes very difficult for us at that point because we have already distributed the asset and reported it to the IRS. So checking on your investments, dealing with problems head on will definitely save you from a lot of headache down the road, okay? And then as I mentioned with the zero value process, we cannot close out a bad asset just because the client claims that it's bad. We have to have proof that you, as a fiduciary, have exhausted all recourses for your IRA in order to close that out. And also, if you distribute a bad asset from your account and you miraculously recover on that investment at some time in the future, you cannot put it back in your IRA. Okay, so that also could result in a taxable consequence for you. Okay, and then last, a consultation with an attorney to review your investment documents can cost you a few $100s an hour, but it can save you thousands and thousands of dollars in litigation or even foreclosure costs if you had to go down that route. So although, it may seem a little redundant to seek, legal advice before you're investing, even if you've done it a lot, I think the price of legal counsel is a small price to pay considering, how large these investments can get from time to time, right? We see all the time 5-figure investments, 6-figure investments. It's definitely worth the price to seek legal advice before you're funding these large investments with your hard-earned retirement money. So that is the conclusion of my presentation for today. I will open the floor up to questions, and I will do my very best to try to answer them for you.
Thank you so much, Thi. That was really, really valuable information. I know that a lot of time when I'm talking to clients or just other people that call into Quest, these are a lot of the questions that they ask, and the due diligence process is so important. So thank you so much for the information. And of course, we have questions for you.
Yes.
All right. So first, I am interested in purchasing the non-performing or problem assets held by other Quest self-directed account holders. How would I obtain additional information about these assets when they come across your desk?
So that's a little bit difficult for us, right? So even though we still need permission from the account holder that currently holds the investment in order to disclose any information. So if you're working with them directly, you can ask them for permission for us to forward that information to you, for you to kind of see what, how it's performing and things like that. But we do need direction from the original account holder in order to share that information. But we can't share it once we have that. So.
Perfect. Yes, we absolutely protect our clients' information.
Yes.
Okay. Can you talk about the pros and cons of holding a property in your IRA, and more importantly, the complete process of buying and selling the asset and requirements of what to do with the money? I know you've touched on a little bit of that in the presentation, but maybe just a little summary of pros and cons of holding property in your IRA.
So holding property in your IRA, I think the con to holding direct property in your IRA is the maintenance that you have to maintain. So for instance, if you're having to pay taxes for the property, you have to we notify you when we get the tax notices, but you have to instruct us to pay those taxes. But pro of being a Quest client is that you can set up recurring payments for your taxes. So if there are annual payments that you have to do for the property, go ahead and set up those recurring payments with us. And so we can constantly pay them for you year to year. And if they have to stop or they have to be amended, we just need to rely on you to be able to, submit those amendments to us. So it does take quite a bit of work. Sometimes if you're managing that asset directly, like through your IRA, we have had clients use property managers. And as long as we have, documentation showing who the property manager is you're using for your IRA, oftentimes we can communicate with them to ensure that the piece of property is handled correctly. Another thing that you might want to be aware of is with real estate, you still need to be aware of prohibited transaction rules. Okay. You can't have a disqualified person living in the property, paying rent, not paying rent. Just the fact that they're living there alone is a direct benefit to that person. And therefore that would create a prohibited transaction. And so if that is happening, just try to fix it. Don't call us and tell us about it, and things like that. So honestly, and then if you're renting out the property, just make sure that you're giving your tenant proper instructions on where to submit monthly rent payments. Okay, they can do that through through our website. They can make direct payments. They can specify your account, and we apply that correctly. But just understanding the rules and then making sure that you have all the pieces in place to make maintaining that asset easy for you. It might take a little while to set up, but once you have it all kind of ironed out, I don't really think there's any, major cons. It's all like preparation. And then afterwards, I think it becomes easy.
All right, perfect. I think that, well, I'm going to let you as the attorney answer. Can a partner in one company who is the contractor for the joint investment borrow funds from the other partner for renovations?
This is, without understanding the makeup of the company, I can't really answer this question. So I'm just going to say possibly. I'm not sure, and I can't, really give any advice just based on that. And I can't give advice at all. So possibly, but you just want to be really cautious. And if you're unsure, consult with a professional that understands the prohibited transaction rules, because they are complex. There are so many exceptions to them, and things like that. Maybe an exception applies. So definitely work with someone who understands those prohibited transaction rules.
Perfect. All right. This one might be kind of another one, but we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. What if you have 3 lenders and you hold the highest percent of the total loan amount? How is first position handled?
So can you phrase that again? So do they hold the loan together?
It doesn't really say. I'm kind of assuming so. So if you have 3 lenders, I'm assuming together, and
Okay.
one lender, you being one of the lender holding the highest percentage of the loan amount, how is the first position handled? But it doesn't say who has the first position.
Yeah. So, definitely consult with an attorney before engaging in this. But what it sounds like is the IRAs or the parties are partnering on the same lien position, right? So let's say I'm a borrower and I need $100,000 to fix up a property that I already have. And let's say Nicole and Haley both have $50,000 to lend. They would have first lien, 50% first lien position in that property. So they, of course, will, because they're partnering together, would have to generally work together and be on the same page in terms of foreclosing, because you can't just foreclose on half the property. It has to be the entire thing. So if that's the case, if you're partnering, the security levels doesn't necessarily align with that. It's only if you hold a loan and there's someone else that holds a loan and it's secured by the same property, do you look for, levels of security at that point.
Okay, perfect. All right, we have another prohibited transaction question. Are IRA loans to my son-in-law prohibited? What about to his LLC?
He owns it 100% outright.
But I guess for the sake of the question, we can assume it is his LLC at 100%.
Yeah. So, prohibited transaction rules, it specifies that direct and indirect benefit constitutes a prohibited transaction. So if you're skirting that line, I would say, proceed with caution, because it doesn't become a problem until it becomes a problem, right? So I would say if you're skirting that line, personally for me, I would proceed with caution and just classify it as such.
Okay. All right. This other one, I don't think we can do, but you are the attorney of the company. So I'm going to ask you, do you have a referral list of attorneys that can assist with legal counsel on representing our IRAs?
I do not, but I actually like to just tell everyone to go to the state bar in which your investment happens, right? So if it's in Texas, you can reach out to Texas State Bar. They are very responsive. You can kind of explain to them the situation that you're having. Their website is actually really easy to navigate as well. So you can kind of narrow down in terms of who specializes in that area. You can call them, explain the situation. They can give you some referrals as well. So that's personally how I like to handle it. And so based on the state though, you want to go to that particular state bar and ask for that information.
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Looks like we have time for just a couple more questions. If we were to sign up today or within this month, how soon would we have access to funds or be able to apply for a loan?
So in terms of funding, there is a 7-day rescission period. So during that time, you kind of want to move in your funds because the process of moving in funds take time too. So that's one thing, right? You can establish your account here request, generally takes 24 to 48 hours. And once that account is established, you have to work with your existing custodian to move in funds. That process is dependent on the custodian in terms of, how fast it is for them to process the funds, right? So after your account is established, there is a 7-day period where you cannot invest. And that's the time you want to use to move in your money. And then in order to make your money available quickly, you may want to consider requesting that the funds be transferred through a wire because funds become available the following day versus if your custodian is sending a check. We do have, a check hold period. So that will kind of delay how quickly you can invest. So we open the account fairly quickly, but then after that, you have to work with your existing custodian to move the funds, and it will be dependent on how the funds are sent for the money to be available.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question. What type of investments do you invest in within your self-directed IRA? So I'm not sure if they're asking if there are Quest investments or just type of investments in general.
Yeah, so we see here at Quest a large, I think the highest volume of investments is notes, right? So notes secured by real estate is really high, notes secured by security agreement. So, or, personal property, things like that is really high. But we also see, a lot of private entity investments, whether it be a trust, a joint venture, an LLC, we see a lot of those too. And then we do have a good portion of clients that own real estate related assets, right? So direct purchase of real estate. We have a lot of clients who love tax liens. That's like their thing. They know it well. And I would say that the technology with tax liens in the different counties have improved. So you don't even have to appear at the tax lien auctions anymore. You can do all of that remote, virtual. There are websites to do that through. So we have seen an increase in that. But as Nicole mentioned, like earlier on in her in this presentation, there's just such a huge array of investments that we see here at Quest.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ms. T. I do have one last question. I kind of ask everybody this. If you had one golden nugget of advice to give to everybody listening on this topic, what would you give?
I would say if you're dealing with real estate, use a title company. They are just, we're a third party right to the transaction, but they are a third party that will do the title search for you, kind of give you all the red flags that you need before funding the investment. And I know it sucks because, and negotiate the fees with whoever you're lending money to. But making sure that you have that proper title search will save you a lot of time. So if you're doing a transaction related to real estate, consider using a good title company.
All right, perfect. All right, well, thank you so much, Ms. T, for all of your very valuable information. Thank you to the participants for asking all of your questions. I apologize if I didn't get to all of your questions. Please send us an email. Haley is putting in our contact information. T, that was awesome, as Haley commented. Thanks again for everybody being here. We will be back on Thursday at noon for another edition of our weekly webinars here at Quest Trust Company. So thanks again for joining us and have a fabulous afternoon. See you later, everybody.
Bye.